Oh, you're alive there, Chair.
Good morning, members, officers and viewers. This scrutiny committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Election Act, Wales 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times. Members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible. A Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided on request. The image and sound recordings will also be used for training purposes within the Council. And if you can move to the agenda now, please. Okay. Declarations of interests.
Can I declare an interest that my sister lives in Royce Road, Chair? Yes, openness and transparency.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Minutes of the previous meeting, then,
Chair,
please.
sorry, can I just, I'm not sure whether this council has declared an interest, but because I'm a councillor for Rogerstone and my ward colleague is the cabinet member that this petition is going to be going to, so I just thought, but just better raise that just in case.
Thank you. Right, minutes of previous meeting, then, please. Are they a reasonable record of the meeting?
Chair, can I just note on 5A, when we talk about the actions arising, we say the scrutiny advisor noted that brag ratings have been included in monitoring tables and there are still some outstanding recommendations which have been chased and escalated. The committee asked whether it would be possible for heads of service to attend future meetings if no response is received for outstanding actions. If I was looking at a layperson, I think that's a very weak thing. They were long-standing issues, and I think we should change it to the committee not just ask if it's possible, but heads of service should attend future meetings if they don't give us the information we requested.
Yeah, I can take that up. It's no problem.
Is everyone okay with that one?
Yes, Chair, content.
Thank you.
Yep, same here.
Okay, anything else? So it's a reasonable record. Other matters arising under comments and recommendations. I understand that both sets of recommendations were taken forward to the council report that we received on Tuesday, so I think that closes that one out. Any other business on that? Right, thank you. Right then, we're over to Mr. Jarrett now as the lead petitioner of the objection to the proposed allotment development at Crossroad, West. Just to explain to you, you have 5 minutes to talk on this subject. Then, if the committee want to ask you any questions, only a clarification, they can ask you that, and we'll ask you to withdraw from public gallery, which is a bit of nonsense in that. So you might as well stay there. The committee will discuss it and will punish you for whatever recommendation will be.
Before I start, I've got some photographs which I'd like to pass around. I've scribbled on them, just those that have been taken at the time. And I don't know how they are, so you can actually see. Okay, sometimes seeing this back, if you're not aware of this. So I didn't know how many people were there, just
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're not professionals.
As you can see, a number of committee members are attending online.
I didn't miss that. I was given the opportunity to do that, but I didn't have that experience.
No.
I didn't face it.
No, I'm thinking more of getting the information out to them.
I see.
But I don't think there's much we can do now.
Unfortunately not, Chair.
And thank you very much for
I can email it to you, isn't it?
it'll be all of them.
So perhaps you
No, the ones who
Okay, so I'll start now, is that okay?
Yep.
All I'm saying is it's not about me, I'm representing 200 residents, I'm a reluctant attender today. I was just somebody that was part of starting it, my neighbour put it together, and she's actually putting it today, but thank you for letting this happen, we appreciate this. And it's not an objection about allotments, let's get that clear, it's about putting them in the wrong place. And it's, first of all, do you know if there's what is the evidence of unmet need? What is the clear evidence? Because we've had freedom of information facts that we have 65 not in use in Freeport Council, 60 on the wait list, but we haven't had the numbers on the wait list. So to me that doesn't look like a massive demand. And before you start creating new allotments, it would be better to look at what we have at present, and the photographic evidence shows that we have allotments in the area that are overgrown, unattended, and really not used. So to me, it's more environmentally sustainable to start looking at what would be classed as a brownfield site, because it's already in use, but not for industrial purpose. And we do what's happening there and make it usable, because it isn't. So to me, that's quite an important point. So, and also, why is this the wrong site? Well, I've lived there for 37 years, and it's always been a local open space for recreational purposes. Loads of people over the years have played there, walked there, picnicked there, put their tents up there to see if they work, and it's still very much used as the photograph shows. So what in fact will happen if you're taking away from young families and children places to play and spend time together away from their iPads, away from their screens, and enjoy the benefits of the site that was left there for that purpose. So once you change that, it's gone for good, and it's gone for good for the whole community for 25 people. So all the area will suffer because of that. So that's, I know I've only got 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to go quickly. I'm sorry about this, it doesn't make sense. Now, another major issue is the traffic and the highways. Gary, that I brought with me, did a traffic count months ago, and in one day, 6,000 cars passed that site. So it's significant. And it's a busy route. There are 4 junctions, 4 roads that meet there at this roundabout. They go faster than 20 miles an hour very often. And if there's cars parked on the road, it's a problem to get through. If you put 25 extra cars there, 25 people, and it will be cars, because how else can you carry heavy equipment there and put sheds up and do all this sort of thing? You're going to have vehicles. Where on earth did those 25 cars go? And it's already quite hazardous. You've got kids walking to school, you've got families out walking to school, you've got dog walkers, and Gary will verify that it is hazardous, because he lives right next to it. He lives right next to that road, and he can hear the car screeching at speed around their concrete. Yes. And also, when residents moved there, part of the attraction was having this play area. It's part of the character of the estate. And we all have restrictive covenants on our properties that say you can't have a hedge higher than 3 feet. You can't have a caravan on the drive. So it would be incongruous to then put this huge structure around when we have, for years, we've all done what we've been told. And it's lovely. And we have adhered to the restrictive covenant. So, to me, that would go against it. Because the high boundary structure would be 2.8 metres, I think they said. Well, it seems rather intrusive, shall we say. And also the actual consultation. Like many of the residents who live close by, and I say this about
Would you sum up?
Yes, the people who live close by are those most affected. They only found out, most of them, when the petition was drawn up, because there was no people that go on Facebook. I don't. I'm not access. I don't go looking at Newport Council site at night. It's not something I regularly do. I have no need to. So how did we know about it? The petition highlighted it. There was poor consultation with it. And we really, to sum up as fast as I can, this is a place maybe it means more by local schools, more by starting camps, more by other things for a sustainable site, and perhaps put fruit trees, put fruit bushes, make it a place that could be a learning environment for local school and pleasant for everybody, not just at 25. Is that all right?
Thank you, Mrs.
Sorry,
Shaw. No, that's excellent. 5 minutes is not very long. Right. Now, this morning, we're not going to determine whether it's a good idea to have an allotment. We're looking at what we do with your petition. Okay. So, do we have any points of clarification, please? Steve?
Can I just ask how you went about compiling the petition?
My neighbour put it together.
You know, how sort of local are the people
Oh.
who signed it?
Well, from our point of view, when I was out walking, met somebody who, for example, lived in Berwyn Drive and said, would you mind giving those out down there, please? So, and get them to say whether they want them or not. I went to a few houses. Sorry, I've got a few. I went to a few houses and knocked doors and said, would you mind taking these out and giving them to neighbours? People would say, what's this about? Oh, we didn't know this was happening. Obviously, people who live a long way away, further away, it doesn't really affect them because they're not affected by traffic or the intrusion. So some of those said no. They said, we're not for the allotments, but we're just not really that bothered. And I don't know, you handed some out as well. And that's how it was done. And then my neighbour happened to be walking around the other side and she was chatting. We said, well, I'll hand them out here in one of the other cul-de-sacs. So these are local people. I don't know whether 203 are. I had a quick look. I think they all are local or were staying actually with people at the time. And so that's how it was done. We could have got more. We just have been busy. I've been busy. I've been away. I did lots of childcare. And my neighbours are working. So we were busy. We could have got a lot more with you.
No, there was no need to get any more. For the purpose of the petition, you made it quite clear.
I think, yeah.
So.
Thank you, that's very helpful. And those photographs were also helpful just to describe those who can't see them online about children playing on the field there. So you just mentioned something about trees. Would you have any objections to additional more trees on that side?
We've had 11 recently. They're beautiful. They're an asset.
Yeah.
And I think we need them. And I also think some fruit bushes and fruit trees would be nice. And then they could be used.
Yeah.
And also, children, well, where we live, a lot of people have got, on that estate, there's not many people who ever want to open their gardens for those things. Everybody has a garden. There are places we don't. We're very fortunate. And I know my next door neighbour, the top part of her garden was always fruit bushes. And that could be put for everybody. It could be done carefully, it could look very nice. It could be something that children like as well. I first think we have to look at the children as well as everybody else. Because it's a place they can play, it's a place they can gather fruit, it's a place they can learn about nature. And unfortunately these days, it doesn't happen a lot. I used to teach and I know that for some children, they only know the actual environment of their little place. And having this there, a nice walk down, have a look around, there are other schools as well. In fact, it would be like a pilot place, pilot scheme to see how we could have this across the borough. I think it would be a good idea personally.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any other councillors on the line indicating they want to. No, there's no indication. Right.
Councillor Reynolds is indicating.
Oh, he's just not signed up. Yeah.
Councillor Reynolds?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get my mic on to say something. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I'm open-minded on both sides of this, to be honest. I haven't made any sort of firm conclusion, but I just wanted to just clarify a couple of points if I could. In the petition, the pack that we were given, there's a few claims made about the ground conditions, drainage, etc., environmental and ecological impacts. I mean, I won't waste time going through all of it, but there's quite a few claims in there. I'm just wondering, have you got any sort of solid evidence or expert opinion to back up those claims, or is it more anecdotal? And I don't mean that to sound in a sort of critical way. I'm just trying to get this clear in my own mind.
That's a good point. We actually see what we call a lake. We actually visually see it in the winter with little birds floating on it. And it's happened in the last 5 years. But the last 5 years, a nice gathering of waterfowl in the middle. There's a depression there. I'm not an expert on the soil. I'm sure there are them around, but it is, as you get to the centre, it becomes a bog. It's lovely at the moment because it's dry everywhere, and the field looks lovely. It's been well kept.
Oh, I'm sure it will be, yeah.
But this lake in the middle exists, I can assure you. And of course, you've got houses behind that. Down lower, you start messing around with the water table and the structure, the water in that soil. It's got to go somewhere. And it's quite a large area.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, I just wanted to get it sort of more clear in my mind whether it was more observational evidence that you were presenting.
Sorry, more what?
So, observational, sort of anecdotal and observational.
Observational, the fact that we live there in the winter, have a small, visibly wet area. And in fact, one of the council tractors got stuck there. It had to be towed out.
It's not the purpose of this committee this morning to decide the technical merits of allotments or non-allotments on this particular site. It's what we're going to do with this valid petition.
Yeah, that's fair. Thanks. Okay.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you for bringing the petition. I've been on this scrutiny committee since I was elected, and I think this is only the second one that I've seen. And I really wish more residents took matters into their own hands and brought petitions to us. So regardless of what happens beyond this, we'll confer about that at the moment. I'm just really grateful to have a petition in front of us so that we can hear our residents' views.
Thank you.
At the risk of breaking protocol, I'll second those comments, Chair.
Sorry, who's that now?
Councillor Reynolds, did you say?
Oh, right, thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Jenkins.
I do apologise, my camera isn't working properly. I noted in your petition, I just want to make a comment actually, that it's lovely to hear that there's children playing outside and playing on a green area. We know a lot of issues arise these days from children not playing outside. So it is nice to hear, and thanks again for bringing this petition for us.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins.
That's it, Chair.
Who's there?
I think that's just Councillor Jenkins there, isn't it?
Right. Can you shake your hand? Thank you. Okay. Any other points of clarification? No. Today, obviously, you can do as you wish with this petition, but it seems there are only two logical ways forward. To note the petition, which means that would be the end of it, and that would seem somewhat perverse, as 200 residents really feel this is something they want to draw to the council's attention. Or we could submit a recommendation concerning the petition to be included in the wider consultation, which will be presented to the Cabinet member on climate change, waste and recycling, before a final decision is made on the potential allotment site. What are your wishes?
I mean, if I start, I don't like just noting things and just leaving them alone. Residents have got a very good case up. From what I can gather, there are other alternatives for allotments in the area. It's nice to see it being utilised for children playing, open space. And I would like to recommend that it remains as it is, with no allotment plots and recommend that to the cabinet member. With an additional recommendation, perhaps that we could listen and enhance the area by planting fruit trees or something just to assist.
Can we do that? Well, we can do anything. But
We can,
Yeah.
we can, Chair,
Yeah.
we can. So, my thoughts.
Will somebody second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins.
I think we've got Councillor Reynolds who wants to speak online and then Councillor James, Chair.
Right, Councillor Reynolds.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate what Councillor Evans has said. I'm just not sure that as a committee we've got enough evidence to make that sort of decision. I much prefer personally the recommendation that you put forward, Chair, which was to take the petition forward as part of the consultation. So the consultation has more evidence to base its decision on. I'm just not convinced that we've got enough information ourselves to make a clear recommendation of whether the allotment goes ahead or not. I don't think we know enough about the subject to make that decision. That's just my views.
Councillor
Thanks,
Cox.
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
I mean, I support the comment just been made by Councillor Reynolds. I must say this morning that I've been very impressed with the case that's been put to us. That clearly, the clear evidence is representative of a large number of people doing the immediate area. The case has been put to us very, very well in terms of what the objections are to the proposed allotments going ahead. That again, I've been impressed with the argument that's been put forward for the value of the site as it is now, and maybe with some enhancements with trees, etc. So, I mean, I'd be very happy to recommend this to the cabinet member for their very serious consideration. I think it deserves very, very serious consideration. But why I feel a little uncomfortable is with respect to the case that's just been put to by Mrs. Jarrett. But I just haven't heard anything on the other side. I'm just a bit uncomfortable about making a decision as strong as being proposed without actually hearing anything about it. I mean, maybe there are very good arguments on the other side. I actually don't know. But with what I've heard, I've been very impressed with and deserves very serious consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Councillor James, Chair.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I think, I'm pro allotment. I'm also pro green space that children can play on. So I'm going to remain neutral on that. But what I am concerned about is making sure these 200 odd people have their voices heard. And it seems, apologies, it seems that the best way to do that is to make sure that this is included in the consultation. We've heard comments from the petitioner saying that these people didn't even know that there was a consultation going on, which is really unfortunate. So let's make sure their views are put in front of the cabinet member so that she can consider them with everyone else.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd have to second that, Chair. I think it should go forward and be to go with the rest of the consultation, and then a decision can be made on the whole thing, not just parts of it. That should become what it should be one consultation. I thank thank her for bringing her petition to us for us to see. I'm grateful for that. But I have to say that I preferred it to go with the consultation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Linton.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to thank for bringing the petition forward. And the more of these petitions, the greater impact we can have on our communities. And they say, I think, yes, taking note of everything this committee has said, and I'm all for not losing green spaces because they're a valuable asset to the community. But taking in mind as well that there perhaps are other allotments within the area, this should be taken to the the cabinet member and the committee to have a look at it into greater review. And as I say, I haven't seen the photos of anything, so I think the consultation should take this into account and move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Litton. Okay, well,
So can I just clarify and just say, you know, I would be disappointed if we just have a recommendation to take these recommendations, just say noted and listen to it. You know, I haven't seen a great uproar and demand for allotments on this site. I haven't seen people. Perhaps we could ask the councillor for the area, has he got other people coming to him to say, we need allotments. If there are vacancies close by, then clearly, you know, there's enough.
yeah, Councillor Evans, you're overstretching the.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Right.
You're overstretching this. We've got.
Well, you know, I feel we've heard enough evidence.
Right.
That may take
So, without having to put it to the vote, I will.
Well, I proposed it and it's been seconded by Councillor Jenkins. So it's a proper motion and, you know, perhaps you could say what the alternative is. So I proposed it to be seconded. It remains as it is as a green space. So I proposed it to be seconded by Councillor Jenkins and we can have a vote all in favour and all against.
Well, we don't have that decision making power. We can.
I've proposed, we recommend to the cabinet now.
Yeah.
That it remains an open green space.
Well, if that's the case, I'll move an amendment, please, Chair. But I mean, I've every sympathy with what Councillor Evans is saying, and I've every sympathy with the people who brought the petition to us. But you know, as an elected member of this council, that I do honestly think there's an obligation on us to be able to say that yes, we've listened to this side. It's very, very persuasive. I've been very impressed. I think it should be taken very, very seriously by the cabinet member, and I'd like to say that actually in any recommendation we make, we're very impressed. It should be taken seriously, but I don't really feel comfortable with actually just throwing out the whole proposal without at least knowing what the reasons why it was proposed in the first place.
Okay.
Chair, if it's helpful, I think everyone's content that the petition is absolutely going to be referred to the cabinet member to be considered with the consultation feedback. I think it might be beneficial if maybe we had a vote on whether we include the recommendation about it remaining as green space and having further enhancements. I think that's the point that committee and maybe not clear on.
Well,
Yes,
so my amendment was that.
Well, we vote on my proposal and then you put your.
You know that we normally take
how it works, isn't it?
first.
Right.
If Councillor might not got seconded, that's a fault.
To move forward on this now, we've got an amendment. Is the amendment seconded? The amendment's not seconded.
Can you clarify that again? Sorry, Chair, I
Yeah.
couldn't quite hear it. Can you
The
clarify
amendment-
what we're voting on?
The amendment is to refer it to the cabinet member without any additions to.
Well,
Without a recommendation, basically.
yeah, but apart from requesting the cabinet member to take very serious consideration of it and follow the evidence we've heard.
Okay, so that's what you're voting on. To refer it to.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, Councillor Davis is second.
James, Chair, sorry.
Sorry. Councillor James, so you're withdrawing on the first recommendation you made?
I'm recommending, I'm seconding even Councillor Cox's amendment that it go without a recommendation, but with a statement that, you know, they should take it very seriously. Because this is at the end of the day the voices of over 200 people, but the cabinet member will have view of the consultation as a whole, So I do feel the cabinet member will be better placed to make that decision than we are.
Okay, thank you. So that's what you're voting for. In favour?
Sorry, people online, yeah, just put your hands up if that's okay. We've got 3, Chair.
4,
5, 6. 6, Chair.
okay, 6. Against? Okay, thank you. It's determined then.
Well, it's going to be determined by the cabinet member, and it's
Yeah.
fair share. I just thought they made a strong case.
Okay.
That's fine.
But I would like, I mean, obviously, I would,
Right, what do you say?
I would like it to be put in the recommendation that, you know, we very, very proud of that.
So the recommendation that I've noted, just for everyone to be happy with it, sorry, content with it. The committee referred the petition to the cabinet members for climate change, waste and recycling to be considered with the consultation feedback. The committee wished to emphasise the importance of the petition and recommended that this is considered with the utmost seriousness. Are we happy with that, or anything you'd like to add or amend?
Yeah, content.
I'm happy, Chair.
I'm happy, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Jarrett, and thank you, sir, for coming on this one.
Can I just raise something? The
course.
questionnaire online is very biased and it expected everyone, the way it was put together, was pushing one to the other. And when you go through every question, there's a bias to it because it would say something like, so it's yes or no, do you want to do that? And if you said no, all the other questions were irrelevant. And if you said yes, then you would say, whatever, I can't remember what the questions were, but I've actually written it down, I couldn't tell you, the type of shows. But it should have been redone, because it wasn't fair, you weren't able to answer if you didn't want them. You could only answer if you wanted them. And it was, when you got down to traffic, which is a major hazard there, right? When you got down to traffic, some people just tripped traffic, but there was other. And if you ticked other, you could do more than one. You ticked other, there's a place to write.
Yeah, I think this is outside my scope.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
If this just that, if you do have feedback, you can absolutely submit that.
Yeah.
Relevant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If Mrs. Jarrett's got these concerns, where should she send the concerns? We can't take them, you know.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but I will look into
Right,
it.
yeah, and will you make sure that Mrs. Jarrett gets an answer to that? I know it's outside the scope of this committee.
I'll see what it's got.
Can I just say, I'm one, there's a lot of people, you know, it's not about me. This isn't about me. This is about me representing, like you're representing. This is me representing an awful lot of people. And it seems like we put this together with people who want one-to-ones. Where are they? We don't know where they are. We couldn't find them. And that's probably our recommendation.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's been a bit more detailed.
Of course it has.
And I appreciate that.
Good. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
It's not easy coming in front of
No, it isn't, and I thought it was going to be full, and I should have been picking myself into it. And I haven't done that.
You're free to stay for the rest of the meeting, or you?
I'm able to leave.
Able to leave, yeah. But
Thank you.
that's okay.
Right, moving on to item 5 then. Corporate safeguarding report. Thank you. Any others? Any other?
I think this is everyone, Chair.
Pardon?
this recommended revenue for this report.
As the heat of the rain.
Yes.
And Dennis and Mark.
Okay, thank you. Right. Annual corporate safeguarding reports. Does Councillor Lacey want to say something on intro or?
Not massively, but I think it's you know, obviously it's such an important report and work that gets done that not a lot of people hear about the results of, so it's going to thank the officers and the wider council for doing the training.
Okay, thank you. Is everyone?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. So this is the annual corporate safeguarding report, which has been coming to scrutiny for some years, but I think it's just important to highlight that this is the first report that has been produced since the establishment of the Newport Corporate Safeguarding Board. So if you look back over historical reports, you will see that the format of this report is quite different to previous reports, and the reason for that is historical reports have largely centred on the activity within social services, but as the word suggests, corporate safeguarding is something that as a whole council we have responsibility for, and it is not just the activity of the social services or the education department that we should be focusing on in this report. So the report is set out in quite a different layout this year, and it centres on 5 areas around the safe governance, safe employment, safe workforce, and safe practice and safe partnerships. And hopefully, when take views, members' views on this, you'll hopefully be set out what's happened in quite a clear way about what has gone well under each of those 5 areas, what still needs to be improved under each of those 5 areas. And the areas for further improvement will form the action plan that we are currently working to for 26-27, which will get reported into next year's scrutiny. There is an appendix to this report, Appendix 1, which highlights some performance information. It's got a number of graphs on there, and again you'll see that it's not completely centred on social services activity. There are the performance information in there about the uptake of basic safeguarding training across the whole of the council, and Cloud SB training across the whole of the council, both for staff and for members, which we've reported on, and also the completion of DES checks. So, Chair, I have no doubt that members will have had a good look at this report and scrutinised it. So rather than going through each section by section, I'm happy to take questions from members.
Are you content with that, members?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
You want to start, Councillor?
I'm very happy to. There's some comments here. We say in the report, Newport City Council continues to experience increasing volumes of safeguarding referrals in both children's and adult services, reflecting wider national and regional pressures alongside local demand. I think we must have an open and honest debate about some of the reasons. It's scandalous that children and young people have suffered and still suffering because of our lack of action in tackling abuse. Some people would have known about grooming gangs for years, maybe decades, and chose to stay silent. This is completely unacceptable. Domestic abuse in any form should not be tolerated. I know there are even people who work for organisations, I won't mention this particular organisation, have to lie about their jobs because they fear reprisals within their communities. Segregation and so-called cultural differences should not be excused. And an even bigger concern is how many instances still go unreported. What are we, and I include myself in this, able to do about that?
Before you answer that one, the figures that we're looking at today are the report specific. Right, so the old practices of comparing them with the Greater Glen figures are stopped.
Yes, these are, all of the performance information within the report are Newport specific figures. So thank you, Councillor Evans, for that multifaceted question. There's a lot in there. So if you feel I haven't answered parts of it, please do come back to me. They're absolutely right. The report itself highlights the increase in demand that is coming into social services, not only in relation to children's, but adults, safeguarding issues. And we have an absolute responsibility under the legislation to investigate every referral that comes through the door, and we do. And you will see within the performance information for the adult services, you can see the outcomes of those investigations and the outcomes for each of those referrals. And similarly, you can see for the children's information about how many of those safeguarding referrals have actually gone on to have what we call multi-agency strategy meeting. What I would say is that safeguarding is everybody's business. The council cannot do this on their own. It is absolutely predicated on working, very strong partnership, working with our with colleagues across the council, so our education colleagues, and this is why the corporate safeguarding board was established, because we believe that there needs to be a stronger focus on safeguarding across the council being everybody's business. And I can confirm that all of the heads of service for every department across the council sits on that corporate safeguarding board and is an active member. And obviously the partnership working with the police service, with probation, with our housing colleagues, with the third sector. So we cannot do this on our own. But what I can assure you is what the referrals that we are responsible for dealing with, they are dealt with, and they are dealt with in a timely way, and the outcomes of those referrals are appropriate to the issues that are contained within the referrals.
Well, I guess we're trying to, we know there are a lot of instances of domestic abuse which go unreported. I've been, for years, been looking at this and told the reason they're going up is because more people are reporting it. Well, we can't keep saying that there is a whole underworld which I really get across about, that we need to do more, because there obviously is, I don't want to talk about the rape gangs, but clearly police and other organisations in the past have been concerned about tackling certain groups of people. And I'm saying as a council, we should leave no stone untouched. And we should go in and we should be positive and say, this is unacceptable. There's a culture, whatever you want to say it, is completely unacceptable in this country, in Newport. And I guess I want to hear a more strong approach to try and dealing with this, because we shouldn't allow it.
Of course.
I think you make a relevant point. And I think we say, what more can we do? And I suppose I think we as elected members,
exactly.
And last year when I sat here with the corporate safeguarding report, horrified to see that only 55% of elected members had done then that training, and we needed to ensure that we got that training up. The standard training has now gone up to 86%, which is e-learning. That's very basic. But the more tailored and more in-depth training is still lacking in that uptake. And where you hear these horrible, it's a difficult training to sit through, because you hear it really can't, not nice statements and things that go on. I think it's absolutely, you know, there should be no elected member as an excuse, not because you've been here, you know, for 20 years, should you have not gone on to that training. I think that is one of them, because obviously people and we've got a mixed demographic on our council as well. That's one thing that we've got to be proud of. You know, we've got council members that come from all different communities. You know, if we're all trained, we then are able to go back into our communities and pass that over how these things get reported. Additionally, you know, we all sit on governing bodies. The governing bodies have this training. Again, that's a demographic of, you know, covers across the board. And I think people understanding and having that safety net of knowing that the reports are actioned on, which I know they are. You don't always get an email back to say, you know, I've put referrals in for people have asked me to. You don't always get a response back to say that that's being actioned, because obviously the nature of the referral. But I can assure you that they get actioned. I think, you know, surmising on communities and different things, we have to be very difficult in that, because it goes on across the board, as we showed in it. I don't think it is increasing, and it's not just because it's getting reported anymore. I think there's a massive issue with social media, what people are seeing, what children are seeing on social media, you know, what people now become desensitized to, as previously you would have thought is absolutely horrific, and maybe people, you know, there's a real, I think, where I'm trying to go on this, I think we're all responsible to take that forward, to grab the responsibility of reporting it, spreading the word on how to report it. If I wasn't an elected member or wasn't given, would I know that this existed, this voucher recipe? You know, I think that for us, we have to go out there and speak about it a little bit more, I think, and say and understand that. I think, you know, it's. I
was genuinely shocked when I was told that these people from ethnic backgrounds can't tell their husbands or something. They've been given different job titles. They work domestic because of fear of reprisals, you know, within certain members of their community. I think, no, you know, that's quite shocking, isn't it?
It's shocking, but I think that's generalising. That's almost tarring everybody with the same brush there.
No, I'm not tarring everybody with the same brush.
You know, you could go back to the old values mentality from years ago.
Well, yeah.
Thankfully,
we've moved on to those days, but we need to move on.
But I think we have to be very careful in terms of saying, you know, that this is of these certain areas. You know, this is the person's way of behaving. That is not right. That isn't an indicative of a whole.
No, I didn't say that. I just said that there are still members of communities.
But to answer your question, I think we need that 59%, which was 55% last year, obviously with the different training, that needs to come up, and the elected members who haven't done that training or refuse to do that training need to do that training this year, because, you know, they need to sit there and watch what the rest of us watched and be able to take that back out into their mental people.
Thank you, Councillor. This end, it cut across your.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and I, you know, I have to say that the question that Councillor Evans posed was multifaceted. But what I can say is, you know, with absolute assurance that if the Social Services Department receives a safeguarding referral on a children and adult, it is dealt with, and it is dealt with within the correct timescales by skilled, knowledgeable staff, and we do everything we can to, you know, to support and see that referral through. It is a very multifaceted area of practice, safeguarding, and there's no easy solutions, but partnership working is absolutely key.
And of course, we must resist the temptation to draw parallels with cities in the north of England that had horrendous social services problems. And then we don't want to wish those on Newport. Let's hope that we are catching at least the majority of abusers. Let's hope. Right, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a few questions, so I'll ask them one at a time if that's all right. Really glad to see mention of white ribbon accreditation in the report, and pleased to be a white ribbon champion. I was just wondering if you could talk me through the core themes of the action plan. So we've got strategic leadership, changing culture, raising awareness and engaging men and boys. What does that mean in practice for the council?
thank you, Councillor James. In hindsight, it might have been a wise thing to have added that as an appendix to the report. I don't have that information to the forefront of my mind, but what I can do is I can take an action to forward that report to scrutiny members, so you can see the detail of what is in there.
Okay, so making sure we get a full editing of that addendum. Can we agenda it for our September meeting? So we'll put some time aside so we can consider the answer to the question Councillor James has raised.
I mean, I think it depends on what committee you want to do. If you're happy for that to just be an information report, as you normally have to email, and then you can forward any questions through the scrutiny team as you would any other information piece, we can do it that way. I am mindful that our September meeting is already quite full, so I wouldn't advise we put it on that one. But if members feel strongly about it after seeing the action plan, we can absolutely look at what we can do.
I think it should be open for discussion and any potential recommendations.
I think I agree, Chair, and you know, the thing is with the information that comes after scrutiny meetings, I'm not sure the public always sees that. I might be wrong, but usually it's just information only for committee members. So I think it would be really valuable to have that discussed at a committee meeting, if that's okay.
So let's see where we can fit it in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have a look at the forward work programme and see what's viable.
And obviously, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Second question.
Yes. Can you talk us through the VODA SV training? I think we've already touched on it for elected members. Why does it matter, first of all? Why are we doing it?
Okay, so why it matters is what we're aiming to do across the whole council is for every member of staff to have undertaken the basic understanding of domestic violence against women, and the training itself gives a very basic understanding of what constitutes violence against women, but very importantly, that if council staff become aware of it, the support that is in place. So, you know, we're a big organisation, we've got a large number of employees, and we have a responsibility for their welfare. So if one of our members of staff is a victim of that, then there are support opportunities available within the council to support that member of staff. But beyond that, if they become aware of that within their communities, then they are clear about what they can do, how they can report that in as a concern. So that's what I mean by basic training. It's not asking our staff to actually intervene or do anything. It's about recognising what that is, what it looks like, and if they do recognise it, what their basic action should be. Not to actually intervene, but to maybe how to report.
Is it the same for all groups? Because obviously VODA SV training is mentioned a few times through the report. It's mentioned in relation to elected members, in staff, excluding schools, and then also later there's it is mentioned as school-specific staff as well. And obviously the need is probably going to change between departments within NCC as well. So is it the same for everyone?
So the basic training it's the same basic training, but what I will say is that for staff that are working more closely, so for example, social services staff, staff in schools, there are higher levels of training that are available and that are undertaken to to give them more information and even an even deeper understanding of domestic violence and the issues surrounding that. And for some members of staff and teams, particularly within social services, it is actually about delivering interventions to children and families and supporting children and families and adults where domestic violence is prevalent. So it very much, what we wanted to achieve corporately was that every member of staff had at least that basic understanding so they can identify and report. But obviously, if you work in particular sections of the council, you will need more training and on certain areas.
Thank you. Is it mandatory? And is it mandatory for everyone?
It is mandatory training for staff, yes.
Yeah. Why? Although I think you've already explained it, but I just want to get crystal clear on it.
Yeah, the council has a statutory responsibility to deliver safeguarding, to promote and deal with safeguarding issues. So the executive committee decided that under that, because of that statutory duty, and wanting to demonstrate how important an issue this is for the community of Newport, that they made that. So there are a number of mandatory training for every member of staff that joins the council, and this is one of them.
Yeah, brilliant. It's about ensuring everyone has that basic level of understanding, but also showing that commitment, as you say. On that note then, I'm actually really pleased to see an improvement, Newport City Council staff, excluding schools, I think, from 64% to 86%. I think that's a really great sort of jump. What specific interventions were behind that improvement?
I think it's fair to say that the establishment of the new Corporate Safeguarding Board has been very instrumental in that. So having the heads of service on that board, and the information about completion rates of the mandatory training is accessible in real time through the council's MI hub. So every head of service and manager can go into that and see how they, observe their compliance rate and then take the necessary action within the areas that maybe compliance needs to be improved.
Okay, thank you. So the 64% from last year, I just want to double check, did that include staff from schools last year, or did it already exclude them? I can't remember.
It all is, education has always been excluded from the NI hub.
Okay, brilliant.
Schools hold that, but there are moves afoot, and I think hopefully we picked that up within the report, that we are working towards the school staff using the Thinky platform, which has been introduced this year, which is a very easy platform to use, and we can extract performance information more easily from that platform when staff complete their training on it.
And that's a cause for celebration. We've known about this new one for years, and we all celebrate that.
Yeah, agree.
James, in figure 6 of the appendices, you talk about school reference checks, and you say NCC are currently unable to view the information.
So this is because that information is held by individual schools, so maybe that's not quite an accurate reflection. So it is held within the council, is held by individual schools, and so it's difficult for us to extract into one area. So I don't want to comment more on that, because I think it's the head of education would have a more detailed explanation if that was something that you wanted a more detailed response on, Chair.
Well, I think it's make more transparent.
I'm worried that we might stray into reference checks, and we were discussing before that would be someone else. Am I okay if we stay on Vowdesby for now?
No, you're right. I just want to find out why different arms of the council can't see everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's understandable. I clocked that as well. Thank you, Chair. So by my count, 347 members of staff haven't completed it from Newport City Council. That's excluding the schools. I'm just wondering what action's being taken to correct that.
Okay. So the Corporate Safeguarding Board meets on a quarterly basis, and the performance information is brought to each of those meetings. And there are you know, as I say, the heads of service are there, and there are challenges within that board to those service areas where compliance isn't as it should be, and the expectation is that should improve again this time next year. There might be a slight lag in new starters, and then, you know, I wonder whether we will all ever get to 100%. So I would just caution about, I wouldn't want to overpromise that, because I think that there will be maybe a lag from X number of new starters, and they've got X number of weeks before they can, you know, they have to do all of the mandatory training. So I think it's likely we'll never see 100%, but we should certainly see into the 90s.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. Of those 347, do we have data on whether or not they're frontline staff? What level of seniority? Sorry, can't speak. They're at. What departments they're in? I believe we've had that previously.
Yeah, and the heads of service and the team manager and the service and team managers can see that, and those reports are sent to them. And they can access that information and send on MI Hub, so it gives them that granular detail.
And if I can suggest that we need a repackaging of the data, you know, excluding news, let's put a 3-month wait on it, and then we'll say we'll exclude every starter in the last 3 months, and then we should be getting towards 100%.
Also, I think it is important for Scrutiny to know, even as a proportion, what departments are lagging behind others, and certainly if there are many more senior members of staff not completing that training, well, then that's a corporate cultural concern, I would say. So I would like to see that information in future reports. Roughly.
Can I just clarify that, so I make sure that the comments are taken forward. So what we're saying is, in next year's report, you'd like to see a breakdown per service area as to rates, as opposed to the overall corporate view. Okay.
Yes, please, and also level of seniority, if that's okay.
One thing on that, Councillor Jacobs, if we do it by level of seniority, at some point we'll need to anonymise the data. When you get down to such an extent that you can easily identify someone. Okay, so we'll leave it.
I think we have done levels of seniority in other reports, though, haven't we?
But we'll leave that one with Ms. Evans to see about data protection and all this other stuff.
Okay. Are you able to tell us at the moment, and you know, I think you delved into it a little bit earlier or touched on it, what proportion of that 347 are from children's or adult services?
I'm sorry, I can't give you that off the top of my head. I don't have that figure.
That's fair.
But clearly, you will see that very transparently in the next report, because it'll be, you know, you'll see the percentage the completion rates per, and yes, and what I would say is, again, is that it could be that the basic, because we are only measuring basic training here, but a lot of staff within the social services department in particular have way more advanced training than this basic, way more. If you're looking at social workers, within their 3-year degree training, they have way more, much higher level of, within that 3-year course, information and training on safeguarding than that hour or so basic training. So we just need to bear that in mind, that it's just one puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I thought you might say, because you did obviously touch on that earlier. But it is mandatory for them as well. I'm just wondering why that is. If they've got such an advanced level of training that they don't need it, why have we kept it mandatory for them?
But without getting too hung up on this, it's only a matter of devising what's portable training. And if you're telling us that they've already done the training, it very much is a tick box exercise. Yeah, they've done the training.
Yeah, and I can't pretend that wasn't the feedback from a lot of my staff. Is we've done a lot. We didn't train way and above beyond this. But what I would say is that this is about the whole council's approach to safeguarding, and you do have to have some sort of benchmark that is applicable to all staff and to be able to evidence that. So as much as they might have found it a bit frustrating, it was still mandated.
Okay. Question 5.
Before we move on, is it possible for you to supply that breakdown to us as information this time?
I could certainly get that information to you. I don't have it to hand.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'll move on to the elected members training then. This refers to the in-person training, is that correct?
So the member training was, it was a combination. Was Thinky only came in last year for members, I believe. So the initial tranche of safeguarding and biodiversity training was delivered by our head of safeguarding. There were a number of sessions that were put on here at the Civic, and members were invited along. It was varying days, times to try and make it as accessible as possible.
Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to double check. Have you checked that this figure includes counsellors who access the course independently? To give you context, I was one of the, well, I say one of the, I don't know if anyone else accessed it independently, but I'm a victim survivor in, a live case at the moment. I'm still under the care of support workers for it. And I knew that I would find this distressing, and I was able to access this independently. But I just want to make sure that we're not forgetting to include those people in those headline figures, because obviously we didn't access the course in the same way.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. You look at where the data's come from. We don't expect an answer from you.
Yeah, I will look into that, because again, my understanding is that the data was taken from those who actively attended the face-to-face training, or indeed then completed it on Thinky when Thinky came in.
Yeah, so this was before Thinky came in. I actually got sent the slides and the video, and you're quite right, Councillor Lacey, it was quite distressing, and it was absolutely the right move for me to access that independently. But I'm between platforms here, and I just want to make sure that we're not assuming.
Are aware that you had completed it in that way, yes, you would be included in those figures.
Okay, good. And what action is being taken to improve the overall figure? Obviously, we've got it on Thinky now.
Yeah, it's the same principle as the basic safeguarding training. So it's going to be scrutinised quarterly for the safeguarding board. Heads will be held to account, and with the expectation that they put in measures in place for that improvement within their service.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to the school workforce now, and this is the last sort of tranche of questions Chair will be relieved to know. So 51.4% over 2 years having completed the training. I'm having trouble visualising that. Can you give me even a rough idea of context? How many members of school staff does that equate to? It's about half.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do that. Had the head of education been with us today, she absolutely would have had that at her fingertips. But I'm afraid I don't have that.
No, that's okay.
So
that's okay.
Yeah, no.
So I suspect I may not be able to answer some of the questions you might have connected to the education data.
Yeah, I think that's understandable. Perhaps, Chair, if I can ask them anyway, so that they're on the record, and then any that can't be answered be sent to the head of education. Is that okay?
Carry on.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Well, I imagine you won't be able to answer this one either, but my next question was going to be how many of those 48.6%, if my maths is correct, work directly with our children?
Again, I think if you ask them, and we can make a record of these and ask the head of education.
Yeah, I think that's fair. How many of them are senior leadership? There's going to be a few of these. I apologise. I appreciate your answer is likely.
Yeah.
I don't know. Completely understandable, by the way.
You made your point. Now, if you want specific questions answered and you don't think Ms Evans is going to be able to answer them, pop them in writing and we'll send them to the...
but if I pop them in writing after the fact, they're not going to be on record that they've been asked. Which is why I want to ask them at the meeting, if that's okay. There are only a few more.
Well, then.
How many are background support staff? Which schools are they from? You might be able to answer this one. Do you agree it's Newport City Council's responsibility to improve that figure?
Yes, I do. But again, I absolutely, because what we would want is 100%, and with the caveat that I said earlier, that yes, and it could be. I don't want to speak for her because I might give you the wrong information, but I think there is.
What challenges have presented since the last report, specifically about the school workforce training?
So I can say like this. So I think one of the challenges that the head of education would realise is that we've got 52 schools across Newport, and trying to get them all onto the same system to collect data like this is a bit tricky, because they all hold their information and gather that in different ways. But there is a rollout and encouragement for the schools to come on the Thinky platform that I've already referred to, and if we can achieve that, then our data will be in a much stronger position.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Are you aware what actions have been taken since the last report to improve this figure?
Again, I would defer to the head of education.
That's fair enough. And the last one, I mean, maybe this isn't for you either, but one way that might get quite sharp improvement quite quickly is by put in a league table of the schools in this report in future, so we can see which schools, because I imagine there are some schools that are actually really quite hot on this. Their staff are completing the training. There might be some schools that aren't, and I think it's really it would be really useful for Scrutiny and the public to see which schools are behind on that. I also know or can assume that there isn't a head teacher in Newport that wants to be the bottom of that league table. So I think doing that would improve those figures pretty sharpish. So the question was, would officers consider putting that league table in the final report or in the next one? But I imagine that's one for the head of education as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. That was my last question, Chair.
Yeah, on this point,
while we're on while we're on the subject of education, Deputy, I know before I even start that the strategic director is probably not going to be able to give you an answer to what I'm asking, because I accept the point, but it's not your direct gift actually to put these figures in. But one, I have to say this, one training stat that absolutely stood out to me was the head teacher's completion of safer recruitment. The head teacher plays an absolute central part in recruitment in schools. That in many schools, the heads won't appoint anybody unless they're actually on the panel taking part and advising the governors, because the head doesn't actually make the appointment. That it appoints a valid governing body. But also, we're talking, about teaching staff here. We're talking about people who have very, very close contact with children and vulnerable young people. But the completion statistic for safer recruitment, the safer recruitment module amongst head teachers was 50%. You might have read that correctly.
Yeah, and I really do wish the heads of education, and perhaps a note to ourselves as Scrutiny that maybe, a couple of the heads should attend future Scrutiny meetings to enable you to get the answers as opposed to coming after the event. So that's definitely something we will look into for next year's report. The safer recruitment training module was recently developed and has been put on the Blynyddol platform, and it was as a result of the Audit Wales review that we had of safeguarding arrangements in Newport. So it's a recent addition to the mandatory training.
So that doesn't look as bad as it is, basically.
I think so. So
Okay.
so I think it's recently been added as new mandatory training for all senior leaders across the council. So I think that is work in progress. And what I also would say is that our HR colleagues in the department would be involved in those recruitment processes and supporting the schools. So I wouldn't like this committee to assume that safe recruitment was not occurring across our schools. This is one indication that would give us that added assurance. Of course it is. But there are other things.
But with respect, it's one that. But I don't need to list all the reasons why I think it's absolutely essential. Teaching safety part of this training. But I accept the point. It's relatively new. It takes time to eventually get them trained up, I guess.
Yes.
Is that something that we can find out the date when that became mandatory, so we've got some assurance that if it was a year ago, then obviously there's an issue, but if it was 3 months ago, then next year, whether it was that year, it should be.
And what I will say is this is one of those performance measures that the Corporate Safeguarding Board looks at each quarter. So not only is it the basic training, it is the safe recruitment training, it's the whistleblowing training that staff complete as well. So the Safeguarding Board will be looking at this and expecting to see an improvement.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. No problem at all. my first few questions were all going to be about training. There's been a lengthy discussion about training already, which has covered most of what I was going to ask. Certainly the detailed questions about training. Councillor James has covered most of that, which is good news. I would like just to make a comment though about training, and particularly just highlighting the improvement in training accessibility and compliance that I've seen in that report since the introduction of Thinky. That's the big thing that's really hit me. I know more than once in previous meetings that I've highlighted systems like that, things like MyHippo and MyRus, very similar systems used in childcare settings that I work in. And I've always said that real-time monitoring capabilities of systems like that is so important in ensuring that staff stay up to date, not just with the training, but something that I've sort of banged the drum for a long time is the refresher training. I've said over and over again that just because you've been trained once and you've been told something once, that doesn't mean you know it, and it doesn't mean you know it indefinitely. So for me, refresher sessions, refresher training is so important, and implementing Thinky has obviously improved the take up of that and the monitoring of it. So I just want to say well done and thank you for getting that done. I think we've said enough about training for this morning. My first question, sorry, Chair, I just want to mention about staff caseloads. That was briefly mentioned earlier as well. It's mentioned on page 23 of the report, but the graph on page 31, I thought just really brought it into focus for me. It shows a 15% increase in the numbers of children on the Child Protection Register just in the last 6 months or so, which is just staggering. So I'm just wondering if you've got any comments, or could you sort of describe what you think the current caseloads are in terms of the manageability, the safety, and the effectiveness in terms of outcomes, and I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it, outcomes for the service users. Have you got any comments about that at the moment?
So yeah, I think figure 8 on page 31 does show an increase of numbers on the Child Protection Register have risen this year, throughout the year. What I will say is that obviously every child on the Child Protection Register has an allocated qualified social worker. That's an absolute requirement. There is minimum visiting that is statutory for those children, and they all have a very clear plan, which is reviewed again within statutory timescales. I know that the head of Children's Services is, along with her service managers, regularly review the caseloads across the teams and are very cognizant of the fact that they need to support the well-being of their staff, not only in relation to the volume of work that they're dealing with, but also the complexity. So they are under constant review, and demand is increasing, and where possible, we will look to increase the resource and support teams that may be having a lot of pressure at a particular time. One of the things that we are looking to achieve within Children's Services is and the workforce are very good at this. They are very good at supporting the different teams at different points. So you might have one team that is having a particular amount of pressure and demand, and very often workers from another team are able to work across. So I can assure you that the demand is being managed and monitored by the head of service and the service managers, along with the well-being of the workforce, to make sure that they are, that they are looked after and supported in dealing with the complexity of need. Our sickness rates within, I don't want to go too much into Children's Services, to be fair, so I'll stop there, because that would happen through people's scrutiny. But yeah.
A parental question was on turnover rates,
which is quite
low. Quite low. That is quite low.
Off the top of my again, sorry, I haven't got this to the forefront of my head. I think
if it would be helpful, Tanya, I've got that information I can circulate.
Yes, I think it's under 10%, definitely. and our use of agency staff within social services as a whole, children and adults, is minimal. We're talking about under 10 people. That is significant.
Yep. Sorry, Councillor Reynolds. I hope I didn't steal your thunder there.
No, that's absolutely fine. I just want to say, thank you for those comments, because that is quite reassuring. And I'm glad you mentioned about staff support and well-being, because again, it's something that I think people tend to forget sometimes, is the type of work that social workers are undergoing every day. It is very stressful. It can be very disturbing, and it is the sort of work that you don't leave in work when you go home. You take it home with you. And people forget that thousands and thousands of people get supported every single day across the country. And of course, when one thing goes wrong, that's the one that hits the headlines. So it is a stressful job, and I'm glad to hear that people are being supported in that way. If I can just move on to another part of the reports. On page 25, you mentioned about dip sampling of the data. Again, this is sort of linked to caseloads. I'm just wondering whether you can put a little bit more detail about the level of dip sampling that's done. How often is it done in terms of the percentage of the overall caseloads? And how effective has that dip sampling been in identifying areas of concern?
Okay. So that paragraph that you're referring to, Councillor Reynolds, doesn't relate to caseloads of within social services. What that relates to, again, it was a recommendation that was made by Audit Wales when they came to review our corporate safeguarding arrangements. They recognised as a council, across the whole council, that we commission a lot of services, and any service that we commission, they should have basic safeguarding procedures, and particularly where they're working with children and adults. What that refers to is we are dip sampling those commissioned services to make sure that they are meeting their safeguarding duties. So within the procurement process itself, there are things in place whereby the company that we commission from has these things in place, and they have the correct training, policies, procedures, etc. So we evidence it at the point of awarding contract. But once the contracts have been awarded and they are up and running, we can then go, and this is what this system is we will then go in and dip sample to make sure what they said they had in place from a safeguarding point of view is actually in place, and they are doing that. And the dip sample that we have done, so we commission a lot of childcare from different childcare settings across the city. So there was a significant dip sampling that happened across those childcare settings where our prevention and inclusion team went into those, did an audit to make sure that things were as they should be. So that's what that dip sampling refers to. It's about the services that we commission to assure ourselves as a local authority that they are fulfilling their safeguarding responsibilities.
Right, thanks for clarifying that. But has that dip sampling actually revealed any concerns?
Nothing major in the childcare settings and that audit that had occurred. Because this is about supporting those organisations to improve their safeguarding practice. So after each audit, there are some recommendations that you could improve your practice by doing X, Y, and Z, and then that service area will go back and check that X, Y, and Z has been implemented.
Right, okay, thanks. My last question has actually already been covered by Councillor Cox, because again, on page 30, that stat of only 50% of head teachers completing the safer recruitment module, I was staggered when I read that. As a former teacher, I was absolutely staggered, but you have covered that. I suppose the only comment I've got to make really is that this time next year, we will be expecting to see a massive, massive improvement in that figure. And I'm sure that there will be, but yeah, at first sight, that was a staggering thing to read. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Evans, you want to come in on that?
Just a separate question actually. It was about the North Wales Child Practice Review, and it made 15 recommendations for the Corporate Safeguarding Board in Newport. The report makes reference to this and says they'll be implemented during 2026 to 2027. Without going into too much detail, how many of those 15 have already been implemented? How have they been prioritised? And what timescales are in place for that?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. That's a really, really good question. So the report itself and the recommendations only came out earlier this year. So we've had an initial corporate safeguarding board where we looked at the report, looked at the recommendations, and we actually have a board meeting at the beginning of September, whereby the progress on those recommendations will be reported. At first look at some of those recommendations, we believe that as a council we were already meeting some of those because we had different systems in place. You will certainly in the next year's annual report get a much more detailed update in relation to how the council has taken forward those recommendations.
Will there be a timescale allocated to each?
There will be. So the details, there will be. Some of them will take a bit more time because some of them, the recommendations are not within the gift of the council. Some of them are recommendations for Welsh Government and around policy change and implementation of training around professional allegations. But yes, there will be clear timescales on that plan, and we'll be reviewing that in September.
Councillor Davis?
You are mute, Bev.
Sorry, I think you briefly touched on agency staff. I'm not a great lover of them. I know we need them, but I just wondered I couldn't hear whether you mentioned the proportion of staff within social services was agency.
So within the social work adults and children's teams, we've got under 10 agency staff.
Right. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Another question I wanted to ask as well was, how do we compare with other authorities within Wales?
In relation to the use of agency staff?
No, sorry, with regards to what we do with regards to safeguarding, trying to think of other things now, my mind's gone blank. But within everything we do within social services, how do we compare to other authorities?
So that's a really good question, and it's one that the National Safeguarding Board has been grappling with for some time. They have been grappling with how they can create some sort of performance indicators or a scorecard to see the difference of safeguarding activity between one authority and one region, because we have a regional safeguarding board as well for Gwent. So currently there is no defined system to compare us one authority to another, because it is riddled with many differences. So, for example, simply by saying Newport has X number of children on the child protection register and Torfaen has a higher number. So you can't automatically say, oh, that because Torfaen have got more children on the child protection register, that's a bad thing. Because of course it's a good thing because they recognise that there are children that need to be protected and they need to have a child protection plan. So it's not a straightforward comparison, and it is riddled with lots of issues to unpick. In short, there is no no defined way of being able to compare the safeguarding activity of one authority to another, but we do all work to the same legislation and the statutory regulations that sit behind that. So as a very basic, we will all have that in place.
Okay, thank you. The thing I want to bring up is what Councillor Lacey said earlier with regards that everything is actioned on. And I mean, I had a situation of cuckooing in my ward, and I got to be honest, I mean, within 24 hours, somebody had gone out to see this gentleman. So I was quite pleased at the very fast response with regarding the seriousness of the case. So I'd just like to say thank you for that.
Councillor Davis, in previous years, we've asked for the unpacking of data, so we were ensuring that we were only dealing with Newport data rather than data from Torbine, online at Gwent or whatever. So we are pleased, I think, that we are dealing with Newport data now rather than a conglomerate. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else has got their hand up? Are we content with this report now? Yeah. So we turn over to Samantha, who will tell us what recommendations we think we should put forward.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of requests. We've got the request for the action plan for the White Ribbon board. I just want to check on the scope of that, really, whether or not we'd be able to see that or not. But leave it with me and I'll let you know either way. The request for the breakdown by, I believe it was service area and seniority level, Councillor James. Is that right? And I've got a recommendation following that is included in future reports as well, so these all go together. And then your request for those education questions to be sent to the head of education for response. I've got a few of them, Councillor James, but if you wouldn't mind emailing me those questions just so I've got them clearly to send over, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, that's fine. Can I also ask that we recommend, because obviously, you know, school data is coming up in these reports quite clearly, but head of education hasn't been invited, cabinet member for education hasn't been invited, and I actually think it's quite unfair on social services staff to sit there and listen to education questions. I've made the point that those are valid questions that we should be able to ask as a committee, but when we hear this report, we actually need people here who are able to answer them. So can I ask that in future we invite the cabinet member for education and the head of education as well, please?
Well, if we follow down those lines, Councillor James, we might be looking at more senior officers coming along from different departments, because we don't know quite where the questions are coming from. If you're gonna,
but we know for definite that we've got schools data in that report that committee may well have legitimate questions about. We don't know about other departments for now, but we know for sure that you know that we're going to be reporting on schools. Either that, or I'll take schools out altogether and report it in a different way. But I think it's entirely reasonable that we ask a rep from education to be here next time.
No, it's a recommendation, it's not a problem.
yeah, well, I think it's for Ms Evans to decide with a cabinet member what you're going to report on. Because if you report in structures too wide, you're going to hit these questions that you are going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to. You know, it's your report, you decide what you can put in it. We decide what...
hand, I guess.
Pardon?
We have them.
Yeah. I think what I would say to committee, this is a corporate safeguarding report. So it does hit every service area across the council. And you know, the reason I'm here today is I have a statutory responsibility as the Director of Social Services for safeguarding, so it's absolutely correct. I should be here. But I do take, you know, Councillor James's point that there is a lot of unanswered questions from, you know, from an education perspective today, and I think I personally think it would be helpful if the head of education was here, because she would absolutely have been able to have answered those questions and given the committee a lot of assurance, I'm sure.
Yeah, and of course it's for you to consider
Yeah.
for future years, you know,
Yeah, of course.
or you put up. Okay? Where are we now?
We are, I've got all those recommendations noted, so if we're happy to move to the next item, we can. Or chair, if the committee want to take a comfort break at this point, it's entirely up to yourselves.
Yeah.
Do you want to carry on or do you want to take a break?
Do you want the break to sort out your report?
No, I'm fine.
What are your wishes, members? Well, we take a break.
Okay.
I'm very excused for 2 minutes.
Okay. Can we go offline, please, Simon?
Should we reconvene at 1:45? 5 minutes? 5 to?
10 to. 10 to.
10 to? I'm with you.
Thank you. And if we can move on to agenda item 6, please, the anti-poverty strategy annual report. And the stress is an interim report on a half year. Ms. Phillips, sorry, put the name wrong. Ms. Ryan Phillips will introduce, and Ms. Evans will be here to add necessarily. And Councillor Lacey, are you going to sum up, or are you going to?
Well, this sits mostly within council people, but there's problem of mine, so we need to have some kind of
You can sum up if necessary. Yeah, thank you. Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity today to present to Scrutiny the very first anti-poverty annual report that we've worked on across the council in the last 18 months. So just to reiterate and be clear that this is the first report, it is still in draft form. Because it is the first report, we wanted to take on board any comments from Scrutiny today that might help to contribute to finalising the report and prepare it in readiness for Cabinet in September. So that's just to explain the format of the report. It's still in draft form. So just to put some overall context to the report, the Council, the Cabinet and Council agreed anti-poverty strategy in 2025, and within that strategy there was a very clear action plan on what the Council was committed to doing and delivering against that strategy in order to address poverty and inequalities really across our community in Woodford. We have set up an anti-poverty board that is very much sits behind the creation of the strategy and the action plan. And the action plan is governed and overseen by the anti-poverty board, which is chaired by Tanya Evans, the Director of Social Services. But again, it is a corporate response to addressing inequality and poverty in our community. It's not just a social services report, but members of the board are from across the council. I lead on it as head of service intervention and inclusion. What you will see in the report, and it's quite a lengthy report, so again, I'm not going to read through it. Hopefully people will have been able to read through it. But just to point out really that the report, the strategy highlighted 3 very core pillars that we wanted to focus on, which was around prevention. How do we prevent prevention and prevent poverty? How do we prevent people from falling into deprivation, and how do we stop that from happening? How do we support those individuals and families and communities who are already experiencing levels of deprivation and poverty and hardship and inequality? And what are the pathways? What pathways have we got, and what pathways do we need in order to move people onto, in order to make improvements to the quality of their lives and aspire to achieve those that they can individually and collectively as communities. So the format of the report is, I'm hoping, has come across as quite simple, because we find that with these kinds of reports, it can be very dry, you're just reading lots and lots of narrative. We've thought it aloud with some case studies and some pictures, just to give you a real feel of what is happening out there. And we've looked very clearly at 3 clear themes. We've looked at what has gone well, what could be improved, and what difference have we made? What difference have we already been making with the activities and the interventions that are already happening across communities in the report? So this is the first report from 25-26. That's probably as much as I'm needing to say at this time, but happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you for the brief summary. Oh, questions, please. I'll start off with the overview on page 41. I thought that was very helpful. But I looked at some of the numbers and I thought they were remarkably low, because How many supported with food resilience? You've just put 47 down now. So, that's a bit of- Or is this just a map for
Oh, I
future?
mean, graphic.
Yeah, right in the middle.
Page 504, if that helps. And then 41 of the whole pack.
Yeah.
And then engagement in every years, and again, 500 seems incredibly low.
If I can come in on
Please.
that, I think that point, actually, they do look quite low there. What I absolutely do know, and I only heard it yesterday, is there is, I heard that the figures yesterday in terms of how much food for food poverty is supported down and what is being delivered. The problem is, one, this report was being drafted, was not in the same time level. There's a huge amount of work going on developing a food strategy, food poverty, not food strategy. And that doesn't sit with me, it's with another part of the council. And then you have employees and individuals who are currently doing some mapping and some just trying to gather some data and have better understanding of what is happening out there. One of the criticisms that we picked up probably about a year and a half ago was around, we know that people are struggling with food, they can't afford food, they're accessing food banks, but what we didn't have was a really clear, comprehensive picture of what was happening to government board. Now this individual is now in post and she's doing that work, and those figures were presented yesterday in a cabinet member briefing. So I can only explain the timeline there, but I absolutely know I've already had discussions with that officer, and she's going to be very much part of our action plan going forward for this year. So I expect those numbers to be far better next year, because I know it's huge, much bigger.
But, you know, the general principle, it's your report,
Yes.
it comes to us, and we can only question on the report and see what it is. But
I'd have to ask a question about that, actually, Chair. I mean, what struck me in reading this was just, apart from the challenges that we're facing, which are obviously enormous, and many of them are outside your realm anyway, it is just so much going on, and I just wonder how you sort of keep, you know, so for example, if this is an individual that's been supported, they may be being supported by, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different agencies and whatever. I mean, how do you keep a sort of view of that and keep you know, coordinate all of it?
I think in terms of data and numbers, I think that is a very separate challenge, because as you rightly say, we are working with families and individuals who will be accessing a great number of services. So that's why there's no data in terms of people engaging, because I think that would probably be unachievable because of the way systems are all separate, they don't talk to each other. What we've tried to demonstrate through this report, following the strategy, is the commitment that the council has by providing all of these activities from all of these different services and our partners. This is the council's commitment to address and respond to poverty and inequality. I think data is a massive, massive issue. We know, I can tell you categorically, I know that there will be individuals accessing our youth of play service, they may be accessing another youth club, they may be accessing provision for the needs staff around getting back into education. You know, we are not at a place yet at how we can put all of that data together. I think that is
I was thinking of somebody just having it, if you've got, you know, for one individual who's been supported, how anybody has a view of just where that person is. I don't have any means of much data, but I mean, is there an individual who has an overall picture of where, you know, Mr. Smith is, or?
Perhaps I can come in there, Chair. So I think it depends on the individual circumstance. Because you're absolutely right, you know, and there could be lots of agencies involved with an individual, but if there's nobody overseeing that whole picture, it can become quite complicated and disjointed. If that person has a social worker, then clearly it will be the social worker. There'll be a clear plan, whether that's a family or a vulnerable adult, and the social worker would be coordinating that plan and would be knowing who is supporting that person. But because this is very much around prevention, and so a lot of the folks, the people in Newport who are accessing these services may not be anywhere near statutory services because we're trying to get in at an early stage to prevent these from escalating. So it is a challenge, and one I think that we are, thinking about. But are we going to get to a place where, I suppose it does depend on the individual themselves having to sort of manage all of those supports at a low level. I don't know whether we'll be able to get to that position that you're thinking about for low level prevention situations.
Yeah, if I could just ask that slightly, Tam is absolutely right in terms of those children that have got social worker. Everybody coming into this space in our early help and preventative area, all of our teams were fantastically close together, and I think that's the beauty of prevention and inclusion. Before this service area, all of these teams and services were all over the place. This service area now brings it all together, and one of the best things that have come out is how much more joint working and sharing of information and collaborative working, so that if a child is known in a couple of teams, I can absolutely be assured that those teams are talking to each other to make sure that the whole needs of that individual are being met and that's not falling through the gap. So I think something around how we work together really closely is part of that. So that's how we do understand what's going on for that child. The other thing is, as a council, we are looking at developing a more unified system around the things to do with the child, for example, where lots more data can be pulled together so we can have a bit more of a helicopter view of what is going on for that child and who's involved with that child at any one time. So that is a piece of work that we're developing.
Councillor Reynolds and then Councillor Evans.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to ask my questions in a slightly different order to what I intended, I think, based on the last discussion. One of the things I just wanted to touch on was the availability and the awareness of the support that's available. I mean, going forward a little bit in the report, sort of page 50-ish, around that area, there's a number of case studies, which are really good to see. It puts the report into context and just highlights the fact that we're talking about real people with real improvements being made to their lives. We're not just talking about vague corporate statements of ambition. But one statement that jumped out at me was, I didn't realise there was so much help and support for us. And to me, I just thought that was sort of indicative how important this work is, how important it is to keep raising awareness. So with that in mind, one of the things on page 47 was mentioned about the availability of awareness and support, especially face-to-face provision, because not everyone is going to have access to the online pages and online prompts, etc. So could you just give me a little bit more detail about how the availability and awareness in face-to-face provision, how is that being improved?
Can I come in on that one, Councillor Reynolds? They held a session in the library last year where they offered face-to-face stuff on home security and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Next to nobody attended. It was dismal, the number of people that actually turned up. We got 3 officers, I think, and they were there for a couple of days. And understanding how these things work, it is a real problem for the officers and the council, of course.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the point I was making about awareness and how we get the word out there of what is available. So I suppose that's the background of my question, really.
I mean, I'm sure Caroline might want to add to this, but one of the key things, priorities for the prevention and inclusion service is about developing a place-based offer of support. So taking the support into the communities where we live. So in Caroline's portfolio, she has responsibility for running the Olway Community Centre and also the Gear Community Centre. And it's about making sure that the offers of support and the delivery of that support from those centres in the heart of those two communities are, that they get support with benefits. They can see citizens' advice. There's a food pantry there. So it's taken out of communities, and there are plans afoot for 2 more community for the team to be involved in 2 more communities, which is in St Julian's, and also then Betty's is the next place where that is going to be rolled out. There is limited resource, so that we try to sort of put those resources across the city, but it's very much around taking that information, advice and support into the communities. And I know the health boards are looking to mirror that in relation to appointments, for different therapies, etc.
That's brilliant. That, to be honest, that's pretty well exactly what I was hoping to hear. The proactive approach of actually taking the offers to the communities rather than saying, "Here we are, come to us."
Yeah.
So, and you've actually answered my next question as well, which is to do with the partners that we work with, other health boards, citizens advice, people like that, and getting them involved as well. So, I mean, you've already answered that. That's brilliant. Thank you. Jay, could I just quickly ask my next 2 questions, and I'll.
Councillor Evans wanted to come in.
So if I could just come on.
Oh, yeah, of course, no problem.
Just one thing I was going to raise was, you mentioned about the events and things like this. How do we, all these things cost a lot of money, how do we monitor and look back at the outcomes of what's been valued for money and what hasn't, and what are the best outcomes? How do you do that? Because I guess that's following on from limited resources. Clearly, some have got great potential, but nobody's turning up. That money could be diverted to different project developments.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is something that we're constantly looking to make sure that we evidence as best we can. So, the best outcomes, and we try to evidence that in the sections of, so what difference have we made? Because the outcomes will be to the people. It'll be their stories, it'll be the difference that information has made to improving that they have got food on their table, or they have to access more benefits that they weren't aware of that they could access, or we have given them information to protect them from doorstep fraud and those sorts of things. So we've tried to capture that a bit within those case studies under each of the themes in the report.
I accept that,
more
but
globally.
Could there be how many more people potentially?
Yes. And we are looking to try and capture that in a more detailed way.
And just before we move off that, when you say rolling it out to St Julian's, do you mean St Julian's or Beechwood?
The community centre in St Julian's?
Yes.
St Julian's
St Julian's isn't open yet, it's about to open in September.
Which one?
St Julian's, it was St Julian's Adult Learning Centre, but
That's
now moved, confusing.
That's
Moved, but it's the big centre, it's been completely refurbished, and it's happening everything, and there will be a lawyer at the end of it.
No, sorry. I've got an empty community centre in St Julian's,
Oh.
and you're talking about Beechwood.
Yeah, now that one really has its best, because it's called St Julian's, but actually it's different Beechwood, isn't it? You're absolutely right.
You have to change the name.
I know, you're right.
I'll increase the size of the ward, that'll be cancer. Right, sorry, Councillor Reynolds, coming back to you, please.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, my next question follows on quite nicely from that. You just mentioned a couple of minutes ago about access to benefits. And one of the things that really struck me was the response to the LIFT programme letters. It says in the report it was really disappointing. I mean, that's put it mildly, isn't it? Particularly in the sort of the current climate. It's more of a comment than a question, to be honest. I'm just thinking, obviously, you're changing your approach to getting that information out there. It'll be interesting to see what the response is with that change in approach to engagement next year. Because I personally, I would have thought that that would have been a very popular thing for people to take up. I was quite shocked how low the take up was. I don't know whether you've got any comment on that.
Only that we've had exactly that discussion in the anti-poverty board about why, you know, the letters went out being clear with the residents about the opportunity, and we were wondering whether, you know, because there's so many scams out there these days, and we just were wondering if wondering about the authenticity of the letter, and you know, should they make the call and should they engage? Which is why the letter, we're going to be taking a different approach and actually provide more support, face-to-face support to try and tackle that.
Yeah, I mean it. Oh, I'm sorry.
So many scams, as you said, so many scams, phishing scams. You know, all these things that you get through on your phone, you don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore. People have become
Absolutely.
so worryful of what, you know, it sounds too good. The conversation is too good to it usually is, but actually the lift programme, it really was something that we could have done. And I guess maybe there's ways of, should we have done it more widely on our corporate web pages so they knew it was from us when it landed on their laps. But I think it is to do with that, like really people don't believe things anymore, anyway, or if they do, it's the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, there's millions of pounds of unclaimed benefits out there that people are perfectly entitled to. And then, as you say, there's so many scams around. When you get a letter like that, it's ironic that a lot of people just think it's too good to be true. In this case, actually, it's not too good to be true. It really is. My last question, Chair, if you don't mind, is going back a little bit to the secondary schools. There's a mention about the transition to secondary schools and working or better cluster work. Well, working across clusters, not so much cluster working, but working across clusters is something I've mentioned myself in government meetings before. It's actually got highlighted in a recent head teachers interview process as well. I think we're very, very good at working within clusters. All the schools in Newport work well within their own clusters. I'm not that convinced that there's enough cross-cluster working where good practice is shared and also problem solving is shared as well. So I just wondered what comments you might have on that.
I can come in on that one. I think the challenge we've got here is that it's something that Tanya referred to earlier in relation to the safeguarding. But schools hold their own information and their own data. So it's challenging to kind of extract from them, what are you doing about this particular area of work? And we have got a working group on this, and we are looking at how we can strengthen our partnership with education so that we can get to a position where there is a consistent transition programme rolled out across the city, not just in those particular schools who are more proactive and are kind of, you know, on this and getting on with it because they recognise the importance of it. It's very hit and miss at the minute with some schools, but it's certainly an area of priority for us because we absolutely recognise the value. We do an awful lot of work with individuals over the summer to try and hold them and prepare them, but it's much bigger than that, you know, in terms of preparing people for transitions from one school to another. So we are working hard on working towards a consistent programme, a transition programme in collaboration with education. That is happening as we speak, so I expect to see that improvement as we go forward.
You contend, Councillor?
That's it. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. Thanks for those answers. Appreciate that.
Can I come in on the back of that? I must say, to see the comment on transition and that we talked about getting inconsistent, which I'm assuming is implying that there's more work to be done there, it could be improved. Quite staggered me actually, because perhaps because of my own experience, I mean, we were talking about the importance of transition. I'm not exaggerating, 40 years ago. It's not like it's a sort of new bright idea that somebody's come up with, and to think there are schools where we've still got issues around transition. I don't need to comment on why it's so important, transition. It really just staggered me. And I must say, it's just thrown up a wider issue actually, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to education again, but you talk about the lack of data. That ever since I've been on the council, I found it totally impossible to find any data that relates, for example, to our responsibilities under the Equality Act. We have no idea whether about the performance of boys be girls, or children from particular ethnic backgrounds, or whatever, how that compares. Exclusions, are there any issues about equalities there? I know it's please, I've been on the council for 4 years, nobody's managed to find me any of that data yet. I just think that is a massive failure.
If it would be helpful, all of that data gets reported to people. It gets reported to the people committee. So we've had reports on exclusions, on tenders.
Well, I've written numerous emails asking, can I see it? One of which, to be quite frank, came to the chair, and the chair was asked if he was happy that I saw it. But you show me where it is, because I can't find anywhere where a council can access any of that information. Full stop.
Have a look. If there's things you want to specifically, let me know, and I'll see what.
I'll just. But anyway, I don't want to. I'm not a hobby horse, I know, but I'll just.
No formal questions.
I'll leave it. I'll leave that. I've said what I want to say.
Okay.
I haven't got a couple of other questions.
You only came in at that point. Councillor Jenkins ahead.
Councillor Evans, before Councillor Jenkins.
Apologies again, my camera isn't working. So as we know, there's a lot of help and support out there, but I'm still aware that people are afraid to access support sessions. And one of my other question was going to be, what can we do better to reach these residents? So it's really great to hear that you're doing this work in community centres. Do you reach out to charities at all? Because I work in a charity in Pill, and I know we get a lot of residents coming for help, and I'm lucky enough to be able to contact yourselves and the relevant officers. But I think it'd be really helpful to have a one form referral. So maybe there could be an email address so we could send this one form referral, whether it be they can get help from their housing, or help from the school, or help from social services. I think a lot of residents get confused. I know sometimes people can come to us and we get confused ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Some really high points there. I think we're very aware of the service area, and I must stress that the anti-poverty report that's been presented today is not just about prevention and inclusion, but I'm speaking from my own service area. We are very aware, given that we are so community-based, that we need to do better at making sure the information is available and accessible to people. That is something that we are working on. So we're doing that in tandem with two things. We're doing it in tandem with our development of our place-based programme, which is around the community centres, and being more visible, being more accessible, more local to people. They don't need a referral, they don't need to run up, they can just walk in and speak to somebody and receive the help that they want, or help to facilitate the right support. We know we need to do better at that. The other thing that's running alongside of that, which is referenced in the report, is the No One Left Behind programme. And again, that is something about how we engage with communities, so that we understand what is already in the system in communities, and then we work with those local communities to identify with what matters to them as a community, and then what we need to be putting in response to those discussions. So that kind of the foundation of the No One Left Behind. Now, in both of those areas, it is all about, we have got to be reaching out to our communities and individuals so that they are aware. It is something I hear a lot. You know, we often hold events throughout the year, and I'm often hearing people are saying, I had no idea there was so much help out there available. So we've got to do better. And part of that is about working with our corporate colleagues around the website, which has been redesigned. And I've just come out of a meeting on that this morning prior to this. So we are very aware of the need to reach and make people more aware of that support out there. And make sure it's available in a way that's easy for them to access. because one of the things people are telling us time and time again, they do not want to be running up, being put on hold and waiting, and they're not speaking to the right person. They find it very frustrating. That is one of the core principles behind Strategaeth is we remove all of those barriers. You can just come in and speak to somebody and we will sit and listen to you and help you with what matters to you. So those are the things that are absolutely happening, but it's a really valid point and something we're acutely aware of. We do have a comms group that actively works on how we are doing this, and when we hear feedback, and this is something I will take back to them again, is that we need to really think about what our communication programme is looking like and what our plan is, so that we are getting that information out in many different ways and as far and reach as possible as we can. So that will continue, because that is very much at the forefront of a lot of the work that we do. And reaching out to charities, I would say that some of the teams are absolutely in contact and work alongside charities. We do get lots of organisations, some charities, some not charities, but funded in different ways, will come to us and will look to want to work with us. Now, when they are approaching us, we are absolutely aligning them up with the place-based programme, so that we are making sure that all the right people are in touch and talking to each other and looking at how we can enhance the support and provision to those local communities. So probably there's something more we could do about being more proactive about that. I guess the point that Tanya made about we have limited resources, there is only so much we can do. But I think given what we have, the breadth and the width of support that is out there is testament to how much work our officers are doing already alongside. As head of the region, I've always been very, very clear. These services and these provisions will not happen if we were not in partnership with our key partners in the communities, and that does involve charitable organisations and the third sector.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question, please?
Of course.
So there's 1,342 service users have taken up fly and start spaces. Is that the total number of fly and start spaces?
Can you refer what page you're looking at? Is that the infographic?
What page am I looking at? Sorry. I wrote it down separately.
Have you
got it?
Under that one.
So it's just where it yeah.
Right.
If you don't know, I can find that out.
I've answered the question earlier on a different number on that page.
If I can just stress that is no flying start childcare places. That is not telling us the total number of spaces available. That is just telling us in the last 12 months that's the amount of children who have taken up new places.
Okay, that's brilliant.
No, we've got far more, we've got a lot more than
yeah.
And it is going all the time now that we have gone full rollout to universal provision. So no, I think the key word there is that just in the last year, numbers of people who have...
I know it's a brilliant service. Thank you very much.
Councillor Davis is coming in now, but could I ask you all to have a look at page 57 of the report, what could be improved, because I think that's a key part of what we're all about. Councillor Davis, please answer.
It was Councillor Evans first, Chair.
Right.
I did bow graciously for one.
Councillor Davis. Councillor Evans is going
to. Thank you, Chair. I find this statement quite depressing or sad. Might need a bit more explanation. It says that mention about scale and concentration of challenges. The latest Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation data 2025 shows that Newport have the second highest proportion of small areas known as lower super output areas in the most deprived 10% in Wales at 18%, or 18 areas slightly lower than line of Gwent. Now, unless I got this wrong, we don't seem to be making any progress. And you know, any slightly running went to me sounds quite horrendous. Really. So perhaps you can explain the context or.
There's a huge picture out there that wraps around white people who live in deprivation. It's far beyond just these services that can do. We could be out there doing way more, but we're not in control of the benefit system, the housing market, the housing system. So there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. And all those factors, you know, the transport links, all of those things are factors that lead to why an area is in that top 10%, in those 18%, in those 18 areas. So it's much bigger than us. I guess what we're trying to do is demonstrate what we've got, and by bringing it all together in one report for the first time, is showing these are the things that we are trying to do. We are trying to meet with people and engage with people, to look at their benefits, get them into work. You know, are they living in the right places? Are they living in quality homes, etc. You know, those are the things that we can do, but I think there's an awful bigger strategic political issue here around why.
But from memory, these figures have been quite similar for years.
Yeah, you are right, Councillor Evans, but I think the point that Caroline's correctly made is there is only, and the council does have a part to play, of course it does, inequalities. Yeah. But we are, again, a piece of the puzzle, because that is measured on the health outcomes within those communities, the transport links, the quality of the housing, the employment opportunity. And of course, we've got a part to play in some of those, but it's not all within our gift.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the time, but I would have thought our employment levels were considerably higher than communities in the valleys and things like that.
There will be pockets. Pockets in Newport where that sadly isn't the case.
Okay, Councillor Davis then, please.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things I wanted to bring up. I mean, the Chair mentioned earlier about a drop-in and nobody turned up. And I think, looking from that, perhaps we're not advertising these things as well as we could be. But not only that, I think, having been in the same position myself when my children were little, with a lot of people, I think it comes down to pride and shame that they go in somewhere where they're actually coming out with the fact, well, I need help. So I think, was thinking on the lines of, I know Councillor Jenkins mentioned about referrals, but do you take referrals then, like from schools, health visitors, GPs, places like that, that come across the situation often, and they see what's going on within families that could probably refer them to you themselves and get something done that way? You know, what do you do that, or if you don't, would that be a possibility? Another thing I wanted to bring up as well regarding the LIFT programme, and yeah, my uncle actually had a letter and he asked me straight away, was it actually a scam? So I see the point with that. So I was thinking, I mean, would it be a possibility that because it's going on council tax and the fact that people are claiming council tax benefit, whether it would be beneficial to send out a lift letter with their council tax bill, so at least then they could see that it's not a scam because it's actually coming with their bill. Another thing I wanted to bring up as well, they're not necessarily all questions, but with the transition from primary to junior school, I know schools like the individuality of uniforms, but I think in some cases the uniforms are so expensive that it's out of reach of some people. I know people can get grants for school uniform, but you know, being perfectly honest, the grant doesn't touch the surface. So I just wondered on your opinions and your thoughts about, you know, what I've mentioned.
Councillor Lacey is going to come in on this question.
Councillor Davies, if I can, on with regards to the school uniform, and you know, I just wouldn't want to go into the wider conversation with the extent of it, but I know a lot of the secondary schools and some of the primary schools now have second-hand uniform shops, and actually they're not actually second-hand. A lot of them are new. You know, and they open up certain times of the year where people can go in and actually get a new or very close to new blazer, no questions asked. You don't even need to sort of say that you need one, you know, because you can't afford a uniform. So there's some really good work going on locally. I know we sort of said we're not being able to get data out of schools, but as governors you can see that a lot of schools, two for mine, for example, Milton Primary and Baysleg offer, you know, a lot of support for their residents without any questions being asked. So I think a lot of schools across Newport are doing a very similar service, and donations coming from the actual uniform shops to the schools as well. So I said brand new uniforms. So, you know, I think it's maybe thanks on record to the schools and the people that are working in that as well to give that service out.
Yeah, and could I just praise St Julian's Comprehensive at the moment, because they're coming to a system whereby you turn up in a coat that's reasonable, whatever it is, as long as you've got a badge on it. So you're only having to pay for the badge, which is obviously only pennies. But officers on this don't please it.
So if you look at the referral question, because then I think that's straightforward.
I completely understand what you're saying, and would be the first to agree with the point about how people feel about asking for help. You know, there is pride, and they might feel shame, and there's stigma attached to it. But one of the things we're acutely aware of, certainly those service areas in front of inclusion and my colleagues across social services as well. What we work really hard at doing is finding ways where people can access support in different ways. So what I can tell you is there absolutely is a referral form that can be completed on families' behalf by schools, by GPs, by health visitors. You know, that is already out there and in the systems. But what we also do is, in order to empower people to be able to take some control, is actually they can complete that form themselves as well. And that will then come into the system, and then it will get looked at, and then the right response is provided depending on what is required. So there is that referral form. However, and this is part of why the work that's going on behind the scenes, is how do we make it more gender with things like housing, which is a real issue that comes a lot of the time that comes into our world. So we are having those conversations about how we can make our processes more integrated. But just to answer your question, there is a referral form that exists. It takes it into our space panel, which is a multi-agency panel where all referrals can come through, and you know that can be done by professionals who know the family and are working on behalf of the family to make that referral. So that is already in place. And I think the flip side of that is the more we're visible, the more we're available and out there in communities, you know, the more we can get away from just relying on referral forms, because it is a barrier to some people. We'd like to just kind of, you know, get more of a personalised approach where people can just have a conversation. There's no judgment. It's very, very safe. We work really hard to make sure these places and conversations are safe for people. And then if we can avoid all of those kind of barriers around referral forms and processes and stuff. So it is something that we're working on, but that's what we've got in place at the moment. So I can reassure you on that one.
So just then in relation to the other two questions, Councillor James, is the lift letters and the suggestion about going out with the council tax bills, very sensible. We'll take that back to the anti-poverty board and take that forward. And then the uniforms, I think that is something that again I think should be that you know the head of education would definitely have a view on. I imagine. So I wouldn't necessarily want to.
Brilliant, thank you. One more question, well, not a question, it's a statement really. I mean, in Rogerstone, we've held a couple of drop-ins where we've had somebody there that knows about benefits that can be claimed, etc., and where we brought up the lift programme as well. And they've been quite successful we've had a few people of various ages have come in, and we've been able to help. But it's lovely to see the sort of help that NCC are offering, and the questions that you've just answered is brilliant to hear. I'm really pleased about that. I'd just like to say I love the format of the report. I like the idea that you're going about things that you're doing, things you could do better. I think that's a brilliant idea, because it gives us a lot more information. I love case studies. I mean, they're one of my advocates. I love case studies. So it was great to see a couple of those in there as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
In the report, it refers to place-based support, which I'm assuming means you have teams in a particular neighbourhood that get to know it, get to know the people, etc. What I'm interested to know is to what extent does that impact, or what impact does it have on people who do not live in unitary areas? And I'll explain why I'm asking you this, is because I'm a councillor for Killeen, and whereas Killeen is sometimes regarded as some sort of prosperous, leafy suburb, there really is deprivation there. A large part of Killeen actually is within the 20% top percentile of deprivation. Yet, I'll be quite honest, I sometimes get the feeling that those people maybe don't get the support they need in Killeen that they might get in other areas. I mean, I'll use one example. This is quite a simple example. If you look at the council's list of summer activities, I think there's like less than 1% of those ever take part in Killeen. And I understand that there are areas of the city which have got much larger demands in terms of the numbers of people who are living in deprivation. But even if there's just one person in Killeen living in deprivation, that's like 100% as far as they're concerned.
I think it's a fair point, and I think, you know, my perspective on that is it simply comes down to resources. If we had enough resources, we'd be doing what we're doing in Orway, St. Julian, and about the and then the best practice. Look, we will be doing that across the city. But we can't do that. We've only got a limited amount of funding and resources. We are trying to maximise and make really good business use of existing assets that the council has, where previously they've been kept quite unused. So it's about trying to bring that agenda to life. I think part of my thinking along the term is that it would demonstrate the impact, demonstrate the difference it's making. It is making a difference to people's quality of life. They're not going into statutory services quite so quickly. So that long-term kind of evaluation stuff that we'll be looking at, we need to get to a point where we can demonstrate and advocate very clearly. We need this in every ward in the court. But that's me thinking of ahead of service. At the moment, operationally, all I can do is what resources have I got and what is the best use of those resources. And when we're talking specifically around anti-poverty and deprivation, then of course it makes sense to target those areas where they are further behind other areas. That's not to say there aren't needs in other areas, like you mentioned in Korean. We know there are, but we have to go where the demand is telling us and what the data is telling us. And, you know, why we see engagement. You know, I know that the summer activities in Korean have been picked up, and I'm aware of that. And that is purely down to based on previous engagement rates and demand for services in the playing calendar. The resources were much more demanded elsewhere. That's the bottom line.
So
Again, if we had it all, we'd be doing it across.
If a family did become in need in something like Fuddiant, for example, you know, how would that likely to be picked up?
So, could you repeat that?
If there was a particular need in Fuddiant, you know, there was a particular family, for example, who was really struggling, and what would, how would that possibly be picked up?
Well, it depends what the need is. You know, I mean, you know, I can use an example of feeling why antisocial behaviour is often put through to me. Saying, look, we've got a problem in this area, what are we doing about it? Now, antisocial behaviour doesn't just sit with me because we've got the youth service, it's a much bigger agenda that sits with community safety, report. But when we look at that and say, okay, we're being told there's all of this stuff going on in Fuddiant, what we then have to look at is, well, what is the police telling us? The police are telling us actually there are no reports. It's not that they don't have any information to show that there is a problem in that particular area. So again, we have to focus on where we do put our resources based on intelligence and data and actual evidence of what something is happening. And that's just one example. But, you know, if we get an area where, I don't know, there's a group of people who might be interested in, or they're saying they're quite lonely, they don't quite know what to do, you know, they're people isolated from their local community. Things like that, we can respond to far more because we can make immediate contact with those individuals, we can put them in touch with what is available, we can have the what matters conversation. It just depends what the demand is really. Yeah, what I can absolutely assure you on is that whatever the demand is, we will always place our resources on where it's most needed. Because that's all we can do.
Can I ask the Newport Promise? Unless I've missed it somewhere, there's a reference to the Newport Promise, but I couldn't actually find a definition of it. Maybe I missed it.
I can say that is under development, which is why there is simply a reference to.
So what's the concept then?
The concept is about having a promise, if you like, to children and young people across the city about support and how they can be supported into education, training and support, education, training and employment, sorry. So it's quite, because employment, good employment is the fastest route out of poverty, which is why it's connected to the anti-poverty strategy. But there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes, which is why there isn't a lot of detail in this particular report. I'm hoping that there will be more detail to come in next year's report about what that actually looks like and what is going to do.
Councillor Linton.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Regarding the Ready to Learn, Ready to Grow grant that is now expired in March, can you tell me how are you going to embed the principles and put them into practice that you state in the report? Can you elaborate on how you're going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the evaluation has not long been completed, and what I can absolutely tell you is those recommendations, and not all of them are just finished, but some of them are for a regional looking as well. But the ones that will be relevant to Newport, we are absolutely taking into our early years and our childcare sector and teams in particular. They have a regular group meeting where they look at good practice, look at what's been learned from projects like that, so that what are the elements of that evaluation that we can take forward will be taken forward. So, you know, there is lots of learning. You know, some of it I would say probably already in hand and we're already with stuff. But those particular recommendations will absolutely be picked up by that working group in early years and childcare. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question? No? Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Councillor Linton. Right. Did you have a little think about what could be improved? Are we content with the general aims of that? Page 57, going into 58. Silence, I'll take
I think it seems to me, Chair, that the officers seem to have a pretty good handle on what needs doing and what needs to improve. And certainly given the impression to me, having got other people, that they're sort of on the case.
I think communication is important. How communication.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lacey, do you want to find a word on this?
I think Councillor Fox hit the nail on the head. The team are exactly what they do in the prevention area. And I think we all know that prevention is the key now in terms of saving the back end of the statutory services as well, and getting somebody, catching somebody early on, which is what this team do. It's not only is it the financial benefits of the council, which helps everybody else, but actually it helps the family because you don't get to that point where it becomes traumatic in terms of what you're doing. But I think Caroline's team in what they're doing, they're across. It's so mixed, in what presents to them, whether it's food poverty or language or all different things. I just from my perspective, as it also crosses on to Councillor Hughes, of course sit there and ask Councillor Davis as well. It's just a thanks to the team and what they're doing in an area that really. It's 2026, when we're sitting here talking about anti-poverty strategies, and it's not something that I thought I'd be sitting in 20 years ago discussing absolute poverty in our city. And I think as much as we can do as a council, we are trying to do. The support is there. Councillor Evans is exactly right in what he's saying. The communication needs to be much better in what's there. And as Councillor Davis said earlier about, catching those people where it isn't a stigma to ask for help, and you're not judged when you ask for help. It is there for you. And again, just like to the schools and other people, I think just to get on my soapbox, I think that that the RSL they need to step up a little bit more for their tenants, and there's a big duty of care that they have for their tenants that I don't think that they're always meeting, and they allow their tenants. They see their tenants in poverty, and not always, but they don't always do something about it. And I think there's an element that they need to put their money in their houses on some occasions as well, and not letting people live in over the awful houses that they live in because they're not being done up. But I can go on. I think you agree with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So just big thank you to the team and what they're doing, and I'm glad that you see the benefit of the report.
And you make a very valid point, Councillor Lacey, that there are certain areas that we should be scrutinising that fall outside the remit of the council. Unfortunately, they won't come and see us.
I know, big problem.
Anyway, there we are. Thank you very much. Can you sum up for us, please, Samantha, what we're going to ask for?
Of course I can. I've got the recommendation about the letters being included with council tax bills and Councillor Davis water. I've got the recommendation about improving communication to residents about what support's available. Outside of that, I've just got that we can tell the report unless there's anything anyone wants to add.
Okay. We can temper it as an interim report, and obviously we feel to see further improvements next year.
Sorry, I didn't listen. I'm really bad commission. You started mentioning youth provision as sparked off an issue. And I've been wondering who to email for ages. Are you the appropriate person?
Email me, and I'll...
Yeah, okay. Right.
Thank you very much for your attendance. Okay, moving on to the...
Thank you. Right, sorry, with you.
Cheers. Sandra, I had a call into work in a bit, so if I leave early, can you excuse me?
Okay, fine. Thank you for your attendance.
I promise I'll wrap it nice and quickly. So you'll be pleased to see that all of our recommendations and actions are in green, apart from the one that is still ongoing. It's my understanding that that review still hasn't been taken forward yet. So once that review...
So, yeah, on that point, this is a year ago. I can't even remember what it's about, but nothing should have an action on go for a year.
Yeah.
Can you remind us what it's actually about?
So I believe as part of the, I want to say that it was the community parenting strategy that we looked at last year. I'm sure that they said they were redesigning for children's services, and we were looking for some information about that. Leave it with me. I'll go back to the team and see if it has actually taken place or if it got a time scale.
If I may remind you, I think one of the major plans of it was the in-housing services, so human exploiting any children out of the.
I mean, you know, I'm sorry.
This was one of the goals.
We can't let issues go on for a year.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't, you know, I would suggest that saying, right, if it's not before the September meeting, they appear at the September meeting and explain why they haven't done it. You know.
Yeah. Leave it with me, I'll check.
I don't know what others feel, if they're content or not. Not bothered or. Yeah.
Maybe it's just been overlooked, so hopefully we'll get that resolved soon.
Yeah, I agree with Matthew that it something like that shouldn't be going on this long. So yeah, I agree that something needs to be said or done that speeds them up a bit.
Yeah, leave it with me, I'll check in. I'll either way, I'll let committee know what kind of response I get. The one thing I would say about the actions and outcome table, I did implement those. Oh my gosh, the extra information in the tables just to say when things are sent out and when we've had things in, etc.
Very helpful.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that okay? Is there anything we wanted to change? But if you like it, I'm not changing it. And then on the Forward Bit programme, there's a slight change to the time of our September meeting, which just starts now related to accommodate flag raising, and that will be the meeting on the 3rd for the digital annual report and the strategic qualities report. And obviously, if we need to invite senior officers, that'll be done as well. But that's all from me, unless anything's coming.
Committee, our pre-meeting, do we want it before flag raising? It's up to you entirely. Or after flag raising?
I believe the advice was that the flag raising would be between 10 and 10:30. Yep. So it should be that our pre-meet starts just as that event is ending. So we might be a little bit later into it, but it should be okay at committee happy.
Okay.
The invitation's actually been moved, hasn't it? It's on the calendar?
Yes. So it's been yes.
Just wanted to confirm. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Enjoy or wish for rain for the rest of the summer. No, that's all. But thank you very much for your attendance this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you,
Bye,
Chair.
everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.